They say life begins at 40. Mine ended. I was 40 years old, recently divorced, financially decimated, and living in the musty guest room of my cousin Janet's house, the same cousin who once cried on my shoulder about her credit card debt, and whose rent I paid for 3 months when she was between jobs, read, "Too lazy to apply." How she greeted me each morning with a disapproving sniff and passive-aggressive comments about the price of electricity. "Morning, Scott. You left the bathroom light on." "Again," she'd mutter, dramatically rubbing her temples like I'd waterboarded her with the utility bill. I didn't answer. I was too busy wondering how the hell I'd let my life implode so spectacularly. Let's rewind, shall we? Just a year before, I had a good life. Stable job in logistics, a modest home in the suburbs of Ohio, a reasonably attractive wife named Miranda, if you squinted and didn't mind the personality of a fruit bat, and a golden retriever named Toby, who loved me more than she ever did. Miranda had expensive tastes and a moral compass that spun like a roulette wheel. At first, I thought the shopping sprees were just stress relief. Then I found out she was screwing our financial advisor. Yes, the same one who told me to trust Miranda's instincts with our joint account. Turns out her instincts involved liquidating everything and funneling it into a private account I couldn't access. And in a stroke of cruel genius, she'd filed for divorce just after moving the funds, playing the victim, while I stood there with a pathetic duffel bag of clothes and a smile that twitched like a dying fish. I remember the judge looking at me, like I was a child who'd lost his lunch money. "You didn't see this coming, Mr. Lane?" No, Your Honor, I didn't. I was too busy working late to pay for her yoga retreats and hair extensions. Long story short, she got the house, the car, and half of my dignity. The other half was scraped up and handed to me in the form of alimony payments that mocked me monthly. I couch surfed for a few weeks, which is just a poetic way of saying I overstayed my welcome in every spare room in town. Then Janet, out of pity, or maybe curiosity to witness a live breakdown, invited me to stay with her and her husband Craig, who I once caught Googling how to appear alpha in front of wife's relatives. They had a spare room, a set of house rules written like the 10 Commandments, and a 17-year-old son named Dylan who referred to me exclusively as the freeloader. "Hey, freeloader," he said one day, tossing a bag of Doritos on the table. "You ever think about getting a job at Subway? They're hiring." "Thanks, Dylan," I replied. "And if I ever want career advice from someone who thinks Fortnite is a life skill, I'll let you know." He flipped me off. I was proud of him. He was learning early what it took me 4 decades to master, being a bitter little bastard. The days bled together. I'd wake up, scroll through rejection emails, go on half-hearted interviews where 20-year-olds with MBA degrees and motivational tattoos told me I was overqualified, then come home to Janet's microwaved meatloaf and Craig's nightly grunting over Fox News. I began talking to Toby in my head. I'd imagine him curled at my feet, judging me silently like he used to when I dropped food and called it 5-second rule. But Toby was gone too. Miranda kept him. "He'll be better off with me," she said, as if I were some traveling salesman who'd forget to feed the dog while knocking on doors with a suitcase full of expired dreams. One night, as I lay on that lumpy mattress, listening to Craig snore like a dying engine, I realized I had 2 choices: die quietly or reinvent myself so thoroughly that even my own reflection wouldn't recognize me. I chose the second. Mostly because I didn't have the guts for the first, I started with the basics: a new email, a new resume. I deleted anything that screamed, "Please hire me, I'm desperate." Instead, I leaned into it. I wrote like I didn't care. Turns out people love confidence even if it's fake. A recruiter from a tiny startup in Cincinnati emailed me. They needed a supply chain consultant. "We can't pay much," he said over Zoom, "but there's equity potential." Equity. The word tasted like hope and capitalism. I said yes. Janet rolled her eyes. "You're leaving a stable town for a risky startup?" "Janet," I said, "you microwave wine." I packed my things, a single suitcase and a half-dead plant I rescued from their kitchen, and left the house without looking back. Craig muttered something about good riddance, and Dylan made a fart sound with his mouth. Class acts, the whole family. The startup was scrappy. 5 guys in a shared WeWork space living off caffeine and blind ambition. But I saw something in them I hadn't seen in a long time. Hunger. Real, raw hunger. I gave them everything I had. Long nights, cold pizza, PowerPoint decks that could make a nun cry. I believed in the company because it gave me a reason not to give up. We launched a logistics platform that used AI to optimize warehouse routes. Sexy, I know, but it worked. We started getting clients, then bigger clients, then investors. Within a year, we moved into a real office. I got a title, Chief Strategy Officer, and a key to the executive bathroom, which smelled like leather and anxiety. I still lived cheap. Rented a 1-bedroom apartment, ate canned soup. But slowly, the bank account started looking less like a crime scene and more like a recovery ward. Then, one Monday morning, I checked my equity value. 7 figures. That's when everything changed. Let's just say, when you come back from the dead, everyone wants to shake your hand, especially the ones who buried you. We were sitting in a polished conference room on the 25th floor of a building that used to feel too expensive to walk past. Now I had an access badge, a leather chair that didn't squeak, and an assistant named Kyle who brought me coffee without saying a word. Bless him. Kid looked like a nervous owl and jumped every time I cleared my throat. Our startup, now renamed, with a sleek one-word name because that's what success smells like, was being courted by investors who wore $10,000 suits and called me brother like we'd fought in Iraq together. I knew they didn't care about me. They cared about what I'd built. And for once in my life, I was okay with that, because I finally had power. Not the fake kind that comes with a corner office and a tiny nameplate, the real kind. The kind that makes people answer your emails in less than 5 minutes. The kind that makes your phone buzz with messages from people who once ghosted you like you were cursed. One of them was Miranda. Yes, that Miranda. She reached out via LinkedIn. Classy. The message was brief, almost sweet. Hey, stranger. Congrats on all your success. Would love to catch up sometime. She included a smiley face like I was supposed to forget the part where she robbed me blind, stole my dog, and divorced me so cleanly it felt like an amputation. I didn't respond right away. I let the message rot in my inbox for a week like forgotten leftovers. Then I replied, sure, I have time next Friday. Brunch? She accepted in 3 minutes. Apparently, brunch with a millionaire is more tempting than screwing your financial advisor. The restaurant I chose was fancy enough to hurt. White tablecloths, a host with cheekbones sharp enough to slice meat, and a menu where nothing had a price listed. That kind of place. Miranda arrived wearing a dress 2 sizes too tight and a smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. She sat across from me like we were on a second date, not a post-apocalyptic reunion. Wow, she said, looking me up and down. You look amazing. Money does that, I said. Also, being betrayed really tightens the jawline. She laughed. You always were funny. Funny. Right. That's what she used to say when I told her we needed to stop ordering sushi delivery every night. The waiter came by, and she ordered eggs Benedict with truffle oil like someone who's never paid for her own meal. I ordered black, coffee in silence. So, she said, stirring her mimosa, I've been thinking about you a lot. Sure. Around the same time you ran out of that hedge fund manager's credit limit. Her smile wavered. Things didn't work out. People change. Yeah. Some of us get stolen from and rebuild our lives from scratch. Others run off with investment scammers. She tilted her head. Scott, I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted. I took a long sip of coffee. You wanted my money. And Toby. She looked down. I gave Toby to my sister. She didn't want him either. He's gone. I felt a sting in my chest, but I didn't let her see it. That dog was the only creature who'd ever loved me unconditionally. I didn't come here to fight, she said softly. I'm proud of you. No, Miranda. You came here because you thought I'd be stupid enough to forget what you did. She went pale. I didn't. You left me with nothing, not even a bed to sleep in. You watched me walk out of our house like a ghost. And now you want back in? She stared at me. Scott, people make mistakes, but we had something real once. You can't deny that. I leaned back. You're right. We did have something. I had a pulse. You had access to my accounts. Real love. She reached for my hand and I pulled away like she was made of venom. I'll call the waiter, I said. You can take the leftovers home. I'm sure your pride will love reheated truffle oil. 3 days later, my cousin Janet called, or rather she texted. Hey Scott, hope you're doing amazing, so proud of you. We were just talking about you last night. Craig said you're a genius. Translation. They saw a headline. Or maybe, Craig Googled me during a commercial break between cable news rants. Then came the real message. Anyway, we've been going through a bit of a tough time. Dylan's college tuition is overwhelming us, and our roof needs replacing. We were wondering if you could help with a small loan. Nothing crazy. Just until we're back on our feet. I stared at the text like it was a rotting fish someone had mailed me in a gift box. Small loan. This from the same people who gave me a 10 p.m. curfew in their home, and once scolded me for using too much soap in the guest bathroom. I didn't respond right away. I waited until the following Sunday, then drove up to their house. When Janet saw me at the door, she lit up like a Christmas tree on sugar. Scotty, oh my God, you look so good. And the car? Yes, the car, a sleek black Audi R8. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted them to choke on the sound of success. Craig came out and offered me a beer like we were pals from way back. Dylan was mysteriously absent, probably too busy failing online classes and sending feet pics for Bitcoin. We sat in the living room, the same room where I used to sit in silence while they whispered in the kitchen about how long I'd be mooching. I sipped my drink and let them ramble about their hard year. Janet teared up. Craig faked a cough. It was pathetic theater. No one offered me a blanket when I was cold on their couch, but now I was the savior with a checkbook. Finally, Craig cleared his throat. So we were hoping you might be able to help us out, just a little to hold us over. We know you've done well for yourself and your family. That word. Family. A term that means we ignored you when you were bleeding, but now you're a bank. I pulled out a checkbook. Their eyes widened. I wrote something down, tore the paper off slowly and handed it to Janet. She gasped when she saw the number, but then her face twisted in confusion. Is this? It's a check for $0.02, I said. 1 cent for each month you let me stay in your house while treating me like a cockroach, with interest. She blinked. Craig turned red. Are you joking? He said. Oh, absolutely not. You wanted a loan? There it is. Go buy a stick of gum and share it as a family. Janet stood up. I can't believe you'd be so petty. Petty? I stood, towering over them now. You gave me a curfew. You made me feel like a burden for existing, and now that I have something you want, you remember my name. Craig stepped forward. We were doing our best. No, I said. You were doing your worst, but don't worry. I've done better. And now I can afford to be petty, generous, or indifferent. Today, I choose indifferent. I walked out, letting the silence choke the room behind me, and for the first time in years I smiled. The next week I bought a house, not because I needed it, but because I wanted that headline to hit every feed Miranda still subscribed to. Ocean view. Infinity. Pool. Office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a whiskey cart nobody touched but me. I installed a custom dog statue in the yard, a golden retriever that looked exactly like Toby. It faced the road, because some ghosts deserve a monument. The invitation came wrapped in gold foil, with a fake wax seal and a font so curly, it gave me motion sickness. Inside, it read, You are cordially invited to the second wedding of Miranda Holloway, née Baker. Join us in celebrating love, second chances, and happily ever afters. Yeah. Miranda was getting married again, to a plastic surgeon from Scottsdale who probably said bro unironically and treated his Botox like holy water. I wasn't invited, of course. The envelope was accidentally forwarded from my old P.O. box, meant for appearances only. She didn't actually want me there, just wanted me to know it worked, I knew. But here's the thing about people like Miranda, they never change. They just swap one wallet for another. I knew this marriage wouldn't be about love any more than her last. It'd be about lifestyle, appearances. The same manicured facade she built when we were together, except now with more filler and less shame. And that's when the idea hit me. Sharp, precise, like a scalpel in her fiancé's perfect, trembling hands. 2 weeks before the wedding, I made a call. I knew a guy, Eli, from back when I was still sleeping on couches and selling old electronics to eat. He'd since moved into the high-end event industry, specializes in creating unforgettable moments. I told him I needed a favor. Subtle sabotage or explosive drama? He asked, sipping what I'm pretty sure was mezcal out of a beaker. Somewhere in between, I said. I want her to feel exposed, but not arrested. He smiled. My favorite kind. The wedding was scheduled for the garden of an overpriced vineyard in California. Not Napa, somewhere trendier. A place with lavender fields and a harpist whose Instagram had a manager. I didn't crash it. I sponsored it. Through a shell LLC I created just for the occasion, I funded the open bar, the ice sculpture, and the luxury memory booth that streamed footage live to a private server I controlled. I even donated the centerpiece floral arrangement, a massive installation of white roses and baby's breath with a hidden speaker at the base. That's where I planted the monologue. Now, before you think I'm insane, I didn't do this out of bitterness. I did it because I needed closure. The kind that only comes from watching someone finally realize who they are in public, with good lighting and a dress they'll never wear again. I hired an actress, classically trained, beautiful, and just drunk-looking enough to pass as a scandal. She showed up 20 minutes before the vows, just as Miranda was posing under an arch covered in orchids in desperation. The actress stumbled toward the altar, in heels slightly too high, clutching a monogrammed envelope. "Miranda!" she called, out, loud enough to halt the string quartet mid-Chopin. The crowd froze. Miranda turned, her face morphing through 12 expressions in 2 seconds. The actress handed her the envelope. Inside was a printed copy of a wire transfer, dated 4 months prior, from Miranda's personal account to a known escort service in Vegas. It wasn't real, obviously, but it looked real enough. The groom took one look and turned paler than the doves in their little cage by the aisle. The actress said, "You said I meant nothing to you, Miranda. But you paid me to keep quiet. Why would you do that if you had nothing to hide?" Gasps. Someone dropped a mimosa. A child started crying. Miranda's hands trembled. She tried to speak, but the mic, clipped to her veil, betrayed every breath. "Security," she screamed, which only made her look guiltier. The actress walked away, slow and theatrical, like she was leaving an audition she'd just nailed. The ceremony collapsed in on itself like a poorly baked soufflé. I watched it all from a live feed on my phone, sitting by my infinity pool with a glass of scotch and Toby's urn beside me. Because some victories don't require applause. Just silence. Later that night, my phone buzzed. "Block number," I answered. Her voice was broken glass wrapped in silk. Why would you do this to me?" I didn't answer. "You ruined everything. You're sick, Scott." "No," I said calmly. "I just believe in symmetry. You humiliated me when I had nothing. Now I returned the favor when you had everything. You're a monster. I learned from the best." I hung up. She didn't call again. But the universe wasn't done throwing ghosts at me. A week later, Janet showed up at my office. Not emailed. Not called. Showed up. Kyle, my poor assistant, looked like he'd seen a bear in the lobby. "She said she's your cousin?" he whispered. "Unfortunately," I said. "Let her in." She wore the same perfume she used to drown herself, in for PTA meetings. Her hair was styled like she'd walked into a salon and said, "Make me look rich and unbothered." But her eyes told a different story. "Scotty," she said, as if the last time we spoke hadn't involved a check for 2 cents. "Janet," I said. "To what do I owe the intrusion?" She laughed too loud. I was just in the area and thought I'd stop by. In Beverly Hills? She faltered. Well, Craig and I have been going through some things. The economy, you know. And Dylan, well, he didn't exactly finish school. Shocking. She sat down uninvited and leaned forward like we were in a therapy session. We were wondering if maybe you'd consider investing in Craig's new business. It's a golf app. For dads. I stared. Is it called foreclosure? She blinked. What? Never mind, I said. Listen, Janet. I'm going to give you something better than money. She perked up. I'm going to give you a lesson. She squinted. You can't abuse people when they're at their lowest and expect them to throw you a rope when they climb out. You turned your backs on me. You mocked me. You made me feel like less than human. And now you want me to fund your failure. That's not fair. Fair? I said. Fair was a mattress on your floor while you locked the pantry. Fair was you telling me I was lucky to be indoors. She stood up, indignant. You've changed. God, I hope so. She left in a huff, nearly knocking over Kyle's bonsai tree. That night I donated $50,000 to a local shelter, in Toby's name. I visited every few weeks, sat with the residents, listened to their stories, not out of guilt, out of understanding, because I'd been there. And now I wasn't. One afternoon, as I walked through the shelter garden, a young man approached me, early 20s, hollow eyes. Said his name was Alex. I heard you used to live like us, he said cautiously. I did, I said. What changed? I thought for a moment, then answered, anger, and Excel spreadsheets. He laughed. For the first time in weeks, apparently, I handed him a card, my company's internship program. Told him to apply, because vengeance is satisfying. But changing the rules of the game, that's legacy. Sometimes I dream about Miranda. Not the real one, the version I built in my head before everything collapsed. The one who laughed at my stupid jokes and danced barefoot in the kitchen. She's gone now. So is the man who used to believe in her. Don't miss him. I miss the version of me who didn't know better. But knowledge is armor. Pain is blueprint. And money is just gasoline. And I, my friend, am the match.